the limit of sequestration and furlough land. Group of 4 is doing the work of what was done by 800 people 3 weeks ago, which might have said, tell my mind, maybe 800 wasn't necessary. But. Okay, Finance Committee meeting, May 28th, 7 p.m. Our agenda for tonight, as proposed, first item would be a reserve fund transfer request from the town clerk. And we have documentation on that, which we distributed. 2, we have had, subsequent to our meeting with the auditor, a management letter. The Finance Committee is in receipt of both that and a response that the town finance director, assistant town administrator had drafted for the selectmen, in which they had voted to support measures in. Third item, fiscal 14 budget process review, outstanding issues. I just put that on there if there are items that have been lingering that came up during the process with it fresh in your mind. I went through all my notes. I don't know if anyone had a chance to do that, but some of them are good candidates for follow-up in a joint meeting with the selectmen and possibly school committee, and since they're looking for a joint meeting soon anyway, that's a good idea. Financial policies update. As those of you who were here in the room earlier saw, we did have another subcommittee meeting on that. We're making some headway, so I'll give you an update on that at that point. We included a finance director report, if the finance director had any report to make for us. Summer schedule, we'll open up discussion then, see what folks' plans are so that we can schedule accordingly. And we do have minutes both from Maryland and Chris. Thank you both for coming up with some minutes, and we'll fill some holes there. And with that...
Paul, just also that Park and Rec letter.
Yeah, I was thinking of that in terms of the FY14 budget process,
Cool.
just as a
Cool.
topic where it fits in.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so the, Bonnie, are you prepared to speak on behalf of Diane's request
Yeah, she's
here?
on vacation this week, so
Okay.
I apologize for that. But yes, the town clerk is looking for a reserve fund transfer request in the amount of $8,500 for the elections account. Her budget for elections is $8,700 annually each year, and it generally covers 2 elections, the fall and the spring. We had 2 additional elections this year that were, not planned for or budgeted. So she's looking for $8,500 to cover those expenses. Some portion of this will be coming back to us from the state, and we will get a reimbursement, but it will not come in all likelihood until after July 1st. In which case it'll be a general fund receipt and be part of the undesignated fund balance. So she needs to pay the invoices through the end of June in order to wrap that up. With what she's got outstanding right now, she's looking at a balance of today as of about $1,200 negative, and she's got other bills coming in to pay. The account is not in deficit yet, but it will be. So again, she's looking to have the $8,500 to close out the end of the fiscal year.
When you say two elections, you mean the primary and that has already happened in the upcoming special general election for the Senate, or was there something else out there?
There was one in the fall.
What?
Was there one in the fall? Yes.
There was the senatorial election.
But that's
Yeah, the only
expected.
unscheduled elections are the Senate
These 2.
vacancy.
I bet you that's what she meant, must be the primary and the general.
Yeah, April and June.
Yeah, she
Okay.
did 2. I know there's 2.
Okay, well, that's it, then if she's anticipating through the end of the year.
Yes.
Her actual language here then is, it's from Diane Query, clerk, a request is hereby made for the transfer of funds for the following emergency or unforeseen contingency. We have been working with the state on reimbursement on state elections, and the reimbursements have not come through. You say as yet, Bonnie?
No, in all likelihood, they won't come through till July. We checked the timing of the reimbursements in prior years.
Okay, so that would go into free cash if it
Yeah.
did came in?
Yeah.
All right. Also, we have had put on 2 additional elections, that's it. Plus we have made improvement to parking for the elections, ease of voters. Election day costs include but are not limited to handicap, regular, coding, printing, warden, assistant warden, feeding volunteers, supplies as needed, mailings of absentee ballots, etc. and the amount requested is $8,500. The account is listed. The account currently has a balance, it's a negative balance of $1,232.58, but you say that was at a
It's kind of in
paper?
process, but not,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, we're not bouncing checks?
No.
All right, okay, that's important.
We don't even cut the checks.
For the 8,500 expense, how much of that gets reimbursed?
She's anticipating about 4,000 will come back based on what she's got in.
This seems like, we're gonna approve this, we have to do it. And some of the language, I mean, one of the things we've tried to do this year is really tighten down and define what constitutes unforeseen, what constitutes an emergency. Feeding your volunteers for an election, complying with the ADA, new elections. Yeah, we're gonna do it, but it's hard for me to call those emergencies.
I think only because it's associated with the special election that wasn't
Well,
scheduled.
but we knew, didn't we know on May 6th, when we did line item transfers at town meeting, that there were expenses here?
Exactly.
Well, that's
I
good.
bet we did.
It feels like that would have been a more appropriate, I mean, this is, when COA's stove blows up, emergency, I'm all over that. This we pay, but maybe we want to get just a little more structured.
Okay. Good point. Had you had any dialogue with the clerk on the subject?
No, she came to me last week and went, oh my God, we need to pay these invoices, and I looked at the budget, and there's not gonna be enough in there to cover it.
Right.
Right, obviously, we both work,
But your point though, Brian, is if we know there's gonna be a special election,
Right.
why not just get up front of it and say we need to transfer
Right.
some more money,
Right,
right?
we knew in, I don't know,
Yeah.
February, March,
Right.
whenever
Mhm.
right, it's not.
Terry.
We know about what it's gonna cost, and so.
Could have been in here with the church meadows and all these other last minute.
And just the thing, on this one, it doesn't so much matter, but there have been times in the past, and there will be times where we're gonna wanna say, no, this is an emergency, wait your turn.
Yeah.
And we have to play by our rules if we want everyone else to play by our rules.
I agree.
Having said that, I'd make a motion we approve.
Your hand's been slapped. And you can have a cookie anyway.
I tried to raise a bigger point. Motion's made and seconded, and under discussion, I would say
It
that,
sounded like to me.
in the grand scheme of things, the clerk neglecting to get an $8,500 request before us by a couple weeks' time that would have made a difference is probably not as big a deal as having a major land purchase get swung through in a week's time without so much as one public meeting, a hearing on it, and that was several $100,000.
Good thing that never happened.
Huh?
Good thing that doesn't happen.
Yeah, right, and we all wanted that, so it's not like it's a bad thing, but procedurally it didn't look great, so I'll just make that.
Well, we knew
note.
enough not to come here to get a reserve fund transfer for it.
Other people have found their way to our door. Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded then to approve the reserve fund transfer from the clerk in the amount of $8,500 for purposes of reimbursement for funding costs related to two special town elections. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You guys have it, okay. What's our balance, by the way, Bonnie?
Oh, you know what, I think we have.
You're at negative 1,200.
Yeah. It's over 100,000, I just can't remember the exact.
Where do we go for emergency transfer?
That needs to go around to be
So,
signed.
The original, this is,
Yeah, we need to sign that.
Okay.
Okay, that's the original there.
Yep. So it's circulated.
Maybe we can do one of those year-end transfers that we do in the first meeting in July.
Right.
That's probably
Okay.
the technical answer.
All right, well, the next item is the audit management letter and the response. And I'll tell you, that the first off on that, I'm not sure if anyone else was, but I was surprised because we had met with Dick Kingston at what was supposed to be a joint tripartite meeting of the three boards along with the auditor and the actuary back in April, and we had the full audit report and specifically asked them whether or not there were any items, because we were looking for the usual management letter, correction list, and he told us there weren't any. And now, then we find out that there was a subsequent management letter that came in on March 7th, but we didn't get it until after it had been received, that a response had been drafted, and that the selectmen had met, discussed it, and voted on what those responses would be. So I want to register, a note that I think the Finance Committee would have appreciated getting the management letter as soon as it came in and been included in a dialogue before the selectmen had reviewed responses and voted on them. So I don't know, Bonnie or Keith or one of you folks want to speak
Well,
to that.
our vote was to ask that we meet jointly with you, and we're waiting to find out when that meeting is.
Well,
I mean, that was our first act.
well, the vote was that the response letter had been reviewed and that the selectmen had voted to endorse the measures in it. I mean, that was the email I got on it that we forwarded, and I don't particularly have a problem with any of the.
Well, I think what the selectmen feel is that they have the ability to formulate their own opinion on the matters that were brought to them, and they're mindful of that. The very next thing they wanted to do was to meet jointly with your board, because it's going to require steps for us to take. So,
Okay, well,
so I don't really see where the offense comes from.
well, all right, I'll reiterate that without getting stuck on this point too long, that back in January, we all agreed to meet jointly with the auditor and the actuary, and your office has set that meeting up, and none of the selectmen came. 2 of the school committee came, our board met with them, we were here all night, it was a very good discussion, we went through the audit at length, and then when a subsequent management letter came in, knowing our interest in it, I think it would have been a reasonable thing that immediately be shared with us, or at least shared with us before a response is voted on. I guess we don't see eye to eye on that, that's just a difference of opinion. But I don't dispute the selectmen's right to take whatever position they want, but I think.
Well, I mean, who's the client? The client's the Board of Selectmen,
Okay. Yeah.
for starters, and in carrying out its function, the board received the letter. Bonnie prepared an accompanying letter so that they would have that additional information. They looked at it, and the action that we asked them to take was to schedule a meeting with the Finance Committee to discuss it. We saw that all of those, the action item is to come and meet with you and talk about those items.
Okay, well, your email was that the board voted the recommendations and subsequently requested to come have a joint meeting with us, which we're happy to do, but
Well, it's the
I just
same-
think we've gotten a long way
Well,
and
it's the same-
good results out
It's
of
the
having a
same motion.
cooperative process.
The motion was to accept Bonnie's letter and to schedule a meeting, in the same breath.
Okay, well, I just think we've had a very good track
We didn't even
record
take
when
a
we
breath.
act cooperatively, and I don't know that this really speaks to that. But, since that topic's on the table, any board members want to?
I just want to clarify, because I'll say I didn't necessarily read that as in excruciating detail, but at town meeting, we talked about that we had the audit and we, as I recall, didn't get any management actions.
There are no findings. There are no findings. So that is a true statement. There are no findings. These are comments, observations, and some recommendations that are not audit findings.
Thank you, thank you.
Good,
That
that's
was-
that's
that
what
was
we
a
presented to
separate-
the town, right?
Yeah, respond
Okay,
to
I just want
findings.
to understand that.
There are no audit findings. There were none, there are none. And what these are
Observations and recommendations.
topics that
Oh,
we should talk about,
Yeah.
which we're talking about. I mean,
Okay.
they're-
The auditor's actual language for it, as he references it, is, we do not consider the following matters to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. However, they are issues we want to communicate to you, and then they go through the 5 of them.
Not to say in future years they couldn't become fine
Right.
if we don't act.
Oh, we will. Okay, certainly. Everyone's had a chance then to see both the the letter and the proposed responses, or the adopted responses. Do you want to walk us through them, Bonnie, Keith, or whoever you, in
Let
turn?
Bonnie do it. I'm leaving for a community preservation committee meeting and at 7:30, and they're so generous with their money, so just try to stay in touch with them.
Okay.
So as I had said before, there are no significant deficiencies or required actions that are taken from the audit. What we do is we sit with the auditor at the end of every audit and ask for these recommendations, things that are on the horizon that need to be put on the radar. So this is something that we solicit their information on in particular. Some of them they come up with, some of them, we ask and they appear in this. So it's a very fluid process. The first one is the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund. The auditor is making a recommendation that we look at adopting the newer language under Mass General Law 32B Section 20. While there's not a requirement to do this is a recommendation of the auditor. So what we'd like to do is work towards maybe bringing that to a town meeting by way of reviewing the actual language and making sure that it's something that really benefits the town. I think it might, but, we want to go through that process. And that probably is something that we should include in the policy subcommittee agenda for review.
Is that that would be what, a change to existing bylaw, or what, if we follow their advice here, what is it they're looking for? A change in our existing bylaw, or a new bylaw?
It's a new trust fund.
It's when we approved OPEB,
Yeah.
32B Section 20 said one thing. The state has changed that to make it, to require towns to set up a irrevocable trust. We don't have a irrevocable trust set up right now. What Dick is saying is that because we don't, then the actuary could not look at our funds as being there for OPEB, because the town could take them and use them for something else.
Do we have the actuary's opinion on that? Because so far, she hasn't taken that position, right?
She has not. But everything that I've been reading subsequent to this basically says that we should be setting up
A trust?
a trust.
From the
There-
state's perspective, from our perspective, is there a benefit to the town to do it that way?
Well, if for some reason there are creditors to the town, they cannot touch those funds because it's a trust specific to OPEB. So it's protecting those dollars for what they're supposed to be used for.
How would the
Do
bond?
I like it? Not particularly, but I think it's something we're probably gonna have to do. It entails setting up a trust committee. I mean, you're gonna need trustees of this trust. You're gonna need,
We can have them be the capital improvement committee too.
you're gonna need insurance for these people, liability
Right, right,
insurance, because they
that's-
have
I could
fiduciary.
just see this whole thing turning into a whole big mess.
Yes.
Have,
That's why I'm asking you, does the benefit to the town outweigh the cost of setting all this up and
It-
paying the insurance and all that?
It protects the assets in the fund. That's what it does,
Right.
so.
At
Is
what
it-
cost?
Right.
And that's what we're gonna need to identify.
Well, and we'd also want to see what are all of our neighbors doing too.
I was just gonna say,
Because
do we
if it-
know about the
if it
towns
becomes-
that
it
have
becomes
taken the
common
bait on this
practice,
yet, or?
All right. You may not want to be the one in the white shirt.
And what's happening with the towns that are doing
That's
it?
what we need to, we have
Okay.
not.
Yeah, I mean, this was.
More and
Explore that, yes.
more towns, I'm finding from talking to our investment advisor, have adopted this and are setting up.
Have set it up with the whole 9 yards.
I'll get the details up.
Okay.
Okay, and the other thought that comes to mind is the bond raters, do they look favorably if you have a trust? Are we already getting credit because they look at it as if we have one, or is it
The
a
question
negative?
was asked at this last go around with S&P, whether we had a trust set up. And we said,
And we were wearing our tap dance shoes.
right, we tried to tap dance
But,
around.
you know, I don't know how those people think, but I could see them thinking both ways. On the one hand, it's a prudent practice, on the other hand, you're encumbering funds that, you know,
Can't use for
they
anything
can't be
else.
used for other purposes, so it's no flexibility. So do we know
There's not
what they
supposed to
prefer?
be Flexibility.
Okay, so they would prefer, likely they would prefer a
inflexibility.
trust, right,
Yeah.
right.
Is there-
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to avoid. is
And the rules
dipping
of these
into-
trustees will keep them from going off the
So
reservation,
you're
right?
protecting your retirees' funds. I mean, basically, that's the liability that's set up.
But can the
It's
trustees,
not the town's money, it's the retirees' money.
will the trustees look at you askance at some point and say, well, you know, it's our job to protect the retirees' funds, and you're not funding this thing the way you're supposed to be?
You have to have language in the trust that says to the trustees that the town doesn't need to fund. So it's not, there's no
I bring it up
expectations
because
on the
I've seen these things
trustees.
happen, you know?
Right.
You create
Sure.
monsters
Oh, yeah.
that you don't expect to
We were
create.
discussing that earlier, different context. We got all sorts of sub-level stuff going on.
So it's a bigger nut than
Yeah.
just saying, yeah, we have a trust.
Trust.
Sounds like it's
Trust
it's
us.
trust us. It's the sort of thing we probably ought to have on the radar screen, but not jump into. Is that fair to say? And get our research and homework done?
We should look carefully, but I think that's unfortunately
Yeah.
the direction we probably have to go to.
Right.
I wasn't of this opinion a couple of weeks ago, but the more I looked at it.
Well, we don't want to find out next time we're bonding that, oh, wait a minute, you know, now we're getting real focused on that and you haven't done it, and you're going to pay a price for it, right? I mean, that's the
It's
risk.
the big thing is with the actuary. If she at some point decides that, because we don't have a trust, she can't look at that, and then a discount rate goes way down, you know, liability goes way up.
In the actuaries, how much latitude do they have from the state? At some point, the state can tighten up what language they
The
have.
state looks at the actuary's report every 3 years.
Okay.
We have to send it to them, and they have to go by, they approve the assumptions that he used.
So,
They looked at the report.
so when would you expect to want to go to town meeting for this vote? In the fall, or would you think you'd want next spring?
I think we would want next spring.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, next spring?
Next spring.
Next
Okay,
meeting.
yeah, no, that, okay.
Does this change the upper, because today, I think you said, rather than everybody going into the trust and then getting paid out of the trust, you kind of put in the net kind of stuff, will that change the accounting process, what we're doing today with paying these
No,
things?
it shouldn't change. I mean, we're operating as if today.
trust
we
now,
had
it's
a
just
trust,
not legally
The
there.
money's going in, we're not touching
Yeah, we're not
it.
It's
taking
not
it
as
out.
protected as.
No plans to take it out
It's just not
before, I
legally
don't
protected.
know, 2031 or whatever the comp year is.
I thought they were
It's
just.
not even like stabilization where it's a 2/3 vote. It's money that we have that we could appropriate, basically.
Cool, let's build a fire station.
Yeah, exactly. See? You know,
Well, I-
I'm not gonna be a trustee.
I don't want to be, thank you.
All right.
We
Everyone
don't need to get into
understand
that.
this?
That's not, what I remember though, the discussion, I'm sorry, that just so I understand in my head, because I thought that we were saying before, because we have costs today, but there's some money we put away like for future, but there's costs today, they're just being paid out of operating budget. And that continues, or is something different here
No,
now?
that-
What
that
does
can
everything,
continue.
because you said technically, I thought you said one time, it should all go in and then we paid
Technically, it
stuff
goes
out.
in and it comes out.
Okay,
You
but
wind up in the same
But we
the
spot.
want
trust won't
appropriation every year.
make a lot more work from that standpoint, is what I'm asking. Okay.
No.
In the budget, we make 2 appropriations, right? One for current year and then one to the
Yes.
fund.
And all you'd be doing in that case, you'd be lowering the current year and increasing the contribution, and then you're taking the money back out. That's all it is.
All right, any other questions or points on this topic, the OPEB? All right. Well, how strong was I didn't remember the language from the auditor on this. Is he just raising the issue, or did he have a strong opinion on that, the auditor on this subject?
He's recommending that we adopt the language.
Immediately, or is it, or a year from now? okay
No, a
with
year
him?
from now is fine. He thinks that, doing that would be a good course.
How about the next topic, the recreation revolving fund?
This was one that involved a lot of conversation between myself and the auditor. And, you know, in looking at the entire recreation revolving issue, he agrees that, and recommends that it should be adopted as an enterprise fund in the fall and then treated, you know, as such going into the next annual town meeting. What this will do from an accounting perspective is make it a lot more transparent as far as what is the general fund subsidy going forward. It would also make it much more easy to track the program expense and revenues, but still allow them to use, if they had a surplus in one program, they could use it to supplement another, you know, program that maybe was not making enough to subsidize itself. But the accounting of it is much clearer. The benefits and indirect costs are also captured in the enterprise fund. And again, you can set the general fund subsidy at any level. It doesn't prohibit you from doing that. It just makes it that much more clearer. So again, it would capture all the benefits, health insurance, any benefits like that, retirement expense.
And the idea of having the fall town meeting vote to establish the Recreation Enterprise Fund means that we would know for certain how it would be treated when we are bringing an annual budget in May. Because we had sort of a disconnect a couple of years ago when we undid the ambulance enterprise fund, because we were never going to make money to squirrel away. So we actually had two budgets prepared that year, an operating budget with that, and then an enterprise fund, because the special town meeting voted first to abolish that enterprise fund, and then we could go to one of two articles in the annual.
Yeah.
And we, rather than have two forms, an operating budget and an enterprise fund, we'd like to know which. And we can decide that in November by having town meeting either accept the enterprise fund for recreation or not. We can ask them to accept it, they can say yes or no, and then we'll govern ourselves by the decision they make.
Well, that's sort of, that's a good segue to one of the topics of, that I'd love to see us, not mostly us, mostly actually as selectmen, is tighten up the policy on what goes in the various, what's allowed to go in the various town meetings, because, I mean, it seemed like for a long time, whenever something came up, it could go in wherever the next town meeting was. And then there's a school of thought that says, no, certain categories go in the annual and certain categories go in the special. And I tend to sit more in that camp. I don't know where the town as a whole sits, but
You know, I used to agree with you, and I just could think that there was, the annual town meeting was where almost everything would go on, things of an emergency nature would go on the fall special. But there's no real language that drives that, and I just think the sheer volume of,
No, a lot of times it's simply, it's orchestration. It's like, well, when is the best time to bring a certain matter forward? For example, we brought the $6.5 million police station to a fall town meeting. Why? Because we were ready to go. And that we had done a big building project either at the annual town meeting before or after, and this one was ready to go, so we brought it forward then. Another thing about whether an article gets in the special or the annual, certainly there's the annual operating budget is in the annual, and that any cleanup at the May town meeting, the current fiscal year transfers and so on have to be in the special. But we've also done, just in terms of when did we want it to come up for the discussion, we did massive zoning changes back in 2010, which we chose to put in the special town meeting. Why? Because we wanted the biggest audience to vote on it. And it's the first night of town meeting, so in the first half hour, or the first hour of town meeting, between 7 and 8 o'clock, when we had maximum attendance, that's when we wanted to bring the Littleton Commons zoning amendments forward. They could have gone anywhere. They could have gone in the annual, they could have gone in the special. There's no law that really says one or the other. That it was a conscious decision that, well, you know what, we do the special town meeting in May at 7:30, and that's when we have the biggest audience. So we wanted to bring the big deal to that big audience.
Just by seeing the plan's observations, the attendance seems to be getting toward parity too between the fall and the springtime. It's not, it used to be you get 400 or 500 in the spring and you'd only get 100 in the fall, but now it seems to be.
And even for that police station project, we had the largest turnout ever vote on the accompanying debt service override,
Right.
because it was on a presidential election. It was the 2008
Right.
presidential
Right.
election.
That's-
so.
Were we just not interesting?
We're fixed.
We're preempted. Okay.
Right. We were off for a while.
Can we-
Barbara was up there.
Oh, real, okay.
Yeah. So anything eloquent you said in the past
That's
15
okay.
minutes, gone.
I gotta go to the meeting.
I was watching me and then all of a sudden I saw my wife and I went, wait, she's not here.
Well, back to the recreation revolving.
Sure.
Park and Rec, are you leaving us?
Community preservation
All
started
right, well,
5 minutes ago.
good visiting with you. We'll, before you leave, I was going to
Yeah.
suggest for the joint meeting that, it's been a while since we've come to see the selectmen. Maybe we'll schedule it on your next available meeting. to
Sure,
come
yeah,
in.
the 24th of June is not completely booked now.
Okay.
We're overbooked for June 10th.
All right.
Monday, June 24th would probably be a really...
I don't want to preclude the discussion here, but we'll
Sure.
aim for that, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, thanks a lot.
The other item, just on the recreation fund, that this would do is, it would allow us to certify their surplus balance at the end of every year, which is not done under a revolving fund account practice. So that, the issues about what is really the surplus with the programs, and that would be identified, clearly certified by the state, and then.
Do you gain a greater day-to-day review with the charter accounts if it's under this process?
Yes.
You do, all right, so that's, I was hoping, hope that was the answer.
So what's the downside for doing this?
The downside is they lose the flexibility in one aspect of, there's a budget that's approved. So
Yes.
right now, right now, there's no budget approved. So whatever's in the revolving fund can be spent, whatever the balance is. If you go to an enterprise fund format, they approve $1.2 million budget, say that's the programming for the year. If they spend $1.3 million, that's gonna be a problem.
Right,
And that's gonna be
okay.
apparent.
Not really,
So
not a downside to us, but might be downside to somebody
It
else.
might be a downside
Okay.
to them. The way that you can avoid or deal with that is by, managing the reserve fund within it. It would have its own reserve fund, which the finance committee would have control over, like the town's reserve fund. So, and that would be paid for out of its own
So if we
resources.
wanted to open the beach after 5 o'clock at night, we could actually be the heroes on that,
Right.
yeah.
So can I use this as an opportunity then to ask?
Can I just,
Yeah, go ahead.
I asked it to a couple of, another
Yeah,
technical
please.
question, but absolutely, this would be a fine opportunity to jump on that. Has the Park and Rec aware of this recommendation? And, I hate to blindside anybody, even if
No,
they're
I
gonna
wanted
disagree with
to
it.
speak with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee first, and then I was gonna reach out to Kate and
Okay.
the Park and Rec Commissioners. Again, it's not a requirement, this is a recommendation.
Right.
And I would like to work with them on doing this. There are benefits to them, in implementing this.
Right.
I think it could be a plus for both.
All right.
As long as we can, explain the differences.
Brian, on a related note,
Unrelated note, I got a message from a concerned citizen asking, who basically saying that the Park and Rec was, because of the town meeting vote that didn't change the classification, that the Park and Rec was changing some services, and this resident
Pay
was-
scale, right?
Yeah, because
Right.
they didn't change pay scale, Park and Rec was cutting the beach hours and potentially cutting swim lessons, and the citizen was pretty, hot might have been the term more, and basically said that this was, in their words, retaliation for not getting the vote the way they wanted, and it's, I didn't say that, but it is a little surprising to get to this point and hear now, several weeks after the town meeting vote, that, an implication of a vote is now that one of our, I mean, they're not canceling Christmas, they're just canceling in the beach hours. I mean,
Right.
it's just,
Well, apparently that text was going out during town meeting after that vote had occurred, but,
It's my understanding that the recreation fees
Yeah.
for programs, for the beach stickers, for everything, were set based on that, the passage of that grid.
okay.
So when that did not happen, they already set their fee schedule for the summer based on it passing. So now there's not gonna be the revenue, I mean, there's gonna be more expenses than they had originally anticipated. So I asked Kate, right after town meeting, to go through the budget again and see what the fiscal impact was gonna be. She's coming back, I think, in the next week or two.
Right.
Um,
Out on
And
maternity
we're gonna
right
sit
now.
down and go through that and figure out what the fiscal impact is.
Because
I said,
just on the point that you're making here, the proposed change would make them more adherent to a line item budget,
Correct,
even though they're operating from a revolving fund,
correct.
which tells me that currently, they're not obligated to it.
They're not.
So why wouldn't they be able to use monies more at their discretion to fund these, the additional swimming hours or whatever it is?
They could if they have them. The problem is right now, where there's not a surplus balance that's certified annually.
Right.
So I could print you a general ledger printout that shows $300,000, as an end balance right now. But that's not realistic because they might have collected a bunch of beach sticker revenues
Right.
that are gonna pay for the expenses over the summer. In an enterprise fund accounting general ledger, that's an expense that gets encumbered and recorded on the ledger. So I can net all those things out and actually see what the surplus is at the end of the year. So if there's $5,000 that's unallocated, they could use it to fund the program. It makes it easier for them to do those types of transfers and adjustments in their own budget.
yeah, I guess where I'm getting to is that this latest incident makes me, like I needed any more reason, makes me more go, yay transparency, let's do this. Because,
I think it'll be beneficial for both the Park and Rec and for the town. They'll be able to see,
Right.
just from the reports that get printed out, it's a different accounting, it'll be much more easy for them to follow their programming costs and revenues.
I guess my comments would be, well, two, one is, I don't think there may very well be politics involved in this, but the fact was, we voted to basically give people more money than was budgeted for, so you'd have to expect something that's gonna get cut. I mean, that's the way the real world usually works. My question is more, how come nobody stood up at town meeting?
I know.
That was the most ridiculous
And they were
thing.
there.
Somebody
They
put a
were
lot
there.
of time to put that whole thing together, and nobody stood up. I'm still kind of, anyway.
and it seems like, at a certain level, the guy was right, because if we're saying that we would have saved money if we passed the thing, so we would have paid people less if we passed the thing, and the guy who stood up said, why are we cutting people's salaries?
That wasn't true. If somebody had stood up from the town
Right.
and said the true thing,
Right.
people who were coming back were going up a step. So their salaries wouldn't have been cut. The new people that came in
Would start at a
would be
different
starting
level.
at a different level. So we
If anyone
weren't
had said
cutting
that-
anybody's salary.
No,
They were
nobody-
simply
It was the most bizarre thing, but anyway, here we are,
starting
so.
from a different place with new employees.
We
that
we all sat there going, I'm looking at my sheet, there's a name there that says, this selectman speaks to this.
Not to mention
Nobody
Park
stood
and Rec.
up. And I said, well, surely Park and Rec is gonna go, wait a minute, you can't do that, I don't have enough money.
Or this is the impact.
Or you're
This
not
is
getting it
impact.
right, this is how it's really is, type
Right.
thing, right. In any event, that's all well and good, and,
Well, it was a fiasco.
yes, it was.
And it was even worse fiasco because everybody voted as though that was all there was to the article.
Clearly, there was more.
And there was more to the article that affected another department.
Sure.
But it all got voted in one swell swoop. Yeah.
And, well, for our current purposes, the auditor's recommendation is that we use a, enterprise fund for the
Yep.
recreation, and the finance director's response is amen, and aiming for the fall special, right? Yeah.
So I would, when I meet with Kate next week, I want to bring this up and bring it forward with her and her board. But I wanted to,
Yep.
And for the record, I mean, this is just for the record, one of the topics that I think would probably, as part of our ongoing joint discussion with the selectmen, even though we went along with that, the financial structure for the Park and Rec, holding it as it was, we had a common agreement that it's a topic that is, can be, it's still open-ended, right? We haven't really resolved that one. Anything else on recreation from anybody? Yes.
Just as part of the conversation, what does Brian, what do mostly the selectmen, what's the answer to the constituents' question as to,
beach services.
yeah.
Once Kate gets me that number, she is going through her budgets right now to figure out if she can recoup it, if she can't, to get the justification of, where it would come from if she could and why it couldn't come from somewhere if it can't. So we will be bringing something forward in the next week or so.
Okay.
Just for yucks,
Mhm.
thinking, what's the first thing we did this meeting? We took some of our 100,000 and spent it on a completely unforeseen, foreseeable event. I'm just saying.
Why don't we see what they find first? But I can't argue with you, but I don't want to offer it just like that.
See
Well,
what Kate comes up with.
Yeah. But the beach in the summer is kind of,
But
Yeah.
the beach isn't open, anybody that's swimming at the beach now, God bless them. The beach is not open, those kids aren't working, there is no reason that the Park and Rec couldn't go back and say, look, town meeting voted this way, we have to do a surcharge, and it wouldn't be that big a surcharge to cover the downfall. So, all this foolishness that they're throwing out there, I think is a lot of huffing and puffing, to be perfectly honest with you. All the little kids that might take swimming lessons, okay, I already paid my $50 for my kid to have swimming lessons, but they say, well, town meeting voted the wrong way, so before swimming lessons, you owe us another $5, or you owe us another $10.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how.
If it came
To
down to
fix it,
that,
yeah.
but in all likelihood, I'm assuming that when you go over the books with it, you'll find something. But if neither of those things pan out, if they don't choose to take that action, and you don't find the money, I'd be inclined to go along with that. It's wrong that we would end up in that place, but
Yes.
But it's even worse that the poor little lifeguards and kiddies pay a price. It shouldn't and it won't happen, right?
Right.
I think we get to go back and say we're working on it
Right.
Yeah.
with a straight face.
Right.
I'd love to see the price tag on it, just to see how much she's supposedly gonna be saving or not, or what it's not gonna cost her, because
Will you know
I
all
think it's
that?
gonna be peanuts, and we're gonna laugh at it,
We will.
but that's something
Will you give
else.
us a little report or
Oh, I
share?
will, yeah, no, I plan on it, because,
And in the meantime, there's kind of an unprofessional posting there on the website, right, that you pointed to us? That was,
Well, that's, that maybe we should handle in the policies and what you're not allowed to do over and over and over again section of this meeting.
Although it's up, maybe, we might each have opinions on it, and I think I share yours both, but I think that's kind of outside of our purview too.
Well, yeah,
Maybe.
But
again, you're
to your
dealing with
point,
another elected
policies
board,
could
and they have their
that's true.
prerogatives.
Okay.
Okay, all right. We ready to move on to ambulance accounts receivable,
we are.
billing and abatements?
Basically, the auditor has expressed some concerns that the abatement policy appears to be more lenient than in other communities. It is the standard policy that Pro EMS, who is our billing agent and our ALS provider, does with the 12 or so communities that are part of the region. I expressed the same type of concerns, a couple of years ago when we switched ALS providers. But what we're going to do is go through the policy, what the other communities have adopted, if there's anything different than the ALS that Pro EMS has out there. It's a lot of letters. And see what other area communities that don't have Pro EMS as their provider, to see what they're doing for abatement policies and bring that back to the Board of Selectmen. for review and adoption. I tend to agree, I think it's a little lenient, but,
We can assume if the audit is recommending that we post it on a monthly basis, then they must have experience that happens in other places, right?
yeah, yes, yes. And that way, it stays current, it stays up to date.
So you're in agreement with the recommendation, you
Yep.
just gotta, do a little research on how to implement.
Absolutely.
Any comment, questions?
And I'll bring the policy back to the finance committee to review too.
Thank you. All right. Moving along then, health insurance retirees.
Basically, this was one of the observations, but that, we develop procedures to bill other municipalities for their portion of retiree health insurance benefits. So say we have an individual that worked here for 5 years and worked in another community for 20. We are allowed under the law to bill that other community for a portion of that 20-year portion of their health insurance benefits. So we're not, somebody isn't coming here for 3 years retiring and then we're on the hook for the whole thing. We currently do that, it's just not codified in writing, and it's basically the law, it's the statute. So basically, we will take the statute, put it in writing, and adopt it as a policy.
And the other towns pay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, we've been doing this for 2 years.
okay, great.
And we get billed from other towns, I mean, it's, you gotta keep up with it.
Okay. I assume.
And you said it's state law, though, this isn't just like a gentleman's agreement with everybody will all do this and be plain nice? It is state law.
Part of that
Okay.
reform package they did about 2 years ago,
Okay.
right?
All right.
So in true municipal form, I took a paragraph with the state law as a paragraph, and I made a 2-page policy out of it.
So again, it's not any issue that we need to worry about, we're just reducing to writing what we're currently doing.
Good.
Same thing for snow and ice expenditures. We are, having worked in other communities, we're very conservative about what we allow through the snow and ice budget. For instance, there's no, if it snows during the day and the highway workers are out plowing, we don't take those wages for that day and charge it to snow and ice. They're budgeted under highway, they get charged just like they normally would. If, however, they go into overtime, which is not budgeted under highway for this, then we do charge the overtime to snow and ice. Expenditures exclusive for snow and ice removal get charged to the snow and ice budget.
Where did snow and ice end up this year? I mean, obviously, a couple 100,000 over or whatever? What was it?
I think we've got most of the bills through, and I think it's 130,000 over, which is not a whole lot compared to other prior years. Last year, we didn't have any snow and ice
Right, we used
deficit,
them on here.
so. But, again, the statute defines what you can charge to snow and ice, and it says it's not a regular budget item, it needs to be exclusive to snow and ice removal. But there are some communities out there that the Department of Revenue, in particular, it's come up in the last few years with low snow totals, that communities still had large deficits. So they said, hey, what are you charging? And there were some regular things that, were charged. So they're reiterating the law that states that it needs to be snow and ice expenditures exclusively. So again, we will take a statute and expand it to a 2-page policy and, make sure that it's adhered to. But again, Jimmy Clyde is probably the best DPW director or highway manager that I've seen with his budget. He treats that like his own budget. He doesn't charge anything to it that shouldn't be going there. He's very conservative. We're fortunate in that. It makes my job a lot easier. So, again, it's just an observation. Department of Revenue's keeping an eye on it, so we will put it in writing.
Okay, any further on that? No. Then the last one is snow and ice, right?
I just did that,
You
yeah.
just did that, right?
That's all.
We had, no, something else I was saying, that's why I was distracted. When we had the auditors and talking to them, we did mention to Dick that, consistent with the dialogue we've had all year long, knowing that, that they do a general survey and then they pick a couple of items to dig down on, we recommended that one of the items we wanted them to dig down on was revolving funds. And I don't know if you've had any follow-up dialogue with him or not, but this would be the time of year where we discuss things with the auditor about what to tell them, because they're gonna start, or they could start looking at it as
Right.
early as July, right?
No.
No, okay, well,
He won't be in, I won't close my books until the end of August.
okay, all right,
And then the earliest that they're gonna come in is typically right after you set your tax rate.
right.
That's when they know everything's closed out, you've got, your certification done, they can come in and review
Well,
the
let me
recap.
rephrase it, before we forget that
Yeah.
what we want them to focus on, that's one item. I mean, were there other things that we, based on experience, we would like the auditor, we probably would, if we pick two or three items,
That
we
was
could,
the measure when we
Yeah.
talked about that.
trying to think if there's anything else that came up in the course of the year. No one else?
Revolving's been big, like I said, the recreation one is one of those.
And when I say that, I guess
You
it's,
know.
it's fair to say across the board, I mean, the police use them, the schools use them, Park and Rec uses them, I don't, just to kind of see
Yeah.
what practice is, where they're, how they're matching up with the charter of accounts or, whatever. Key topic. All right, anything else on that whole range of things?
No, other than that, I mean, just in general, I mean, it's good that, by having, obviously you're gonna get audited anyway, but having the recommendations based on experience of all the other towns and what's going on, I mean, that's a nice, just another check, right, to have in the system.
Absolutely.
All right, you ready to move on to a couple other items? You gonna stick around for a few minutes? All right. I think it was Keith actually sent out the revised local aid estimates. I didn't check. Did you check offhand? How do they match up to what we were?
They're all within a few $1,000s.
Okay, so there's no major change
I'm not,
there.
yeah, no, I wait until the very end.
Okay, yeah. Well, we figured there's none of them were lower than our guesses.
No,
And I was just
no.
curious whether they were significantly higher.
No.
No, okay. Okay, under the general topic of FY14 budget process review, outstanding issues, I'm not sure I worded that as precisely as I could have, but what I was hoping is before we meet with the selectmen at a joint meeting and before we lose sight of anything we've come up with in the course of the budget process, I jotted down different things that came up during the year that I'm hoping we'll either address with the finance team, the selectmen, in advance of the next process. But I can either run down my list or I'm open to anyone else's thoughts. For instance, Park and Rec, we haven't really resolved that issue. Do we want to just hold what we adopted this year and live with that, the partial funding? Now we get the whole new context of whether or not it gets dealt with as a enterprise fund, whatever. There's a topic that we need to follow up with the selectmen on. Secondly, this kind of escaped my mind until it came up again in the last days of the town warrant articles. When we did the refinancing of our debt, didn't we net, what was it, a $200,000 over 10 year? Okay, and we funded.
Not all of that is the town, some of it is light departments.
Okay.
Light water.
But the disposition of that savings, really, we never really talked about that, right? I mean, is there an operating assumption on that? Because it's significant, it's like, what, $100,000 or $200,000 a year, right, for 10 years?
Right.
Okay,
By policy, the financial policies as they stand today state that any reduction in debt service doesn't roll to the operating budget.
right.
It can be appropriated to reserves or capital, one-time expenditure.
Doesn't it go back to the operating budget, that we said?
Yes,
No.
we do not let it go back to the operating budget.
So you couldn't use it for capital then, but don't we fund capital inside the operating budget?
We have a certain level of capital that's funded inside the operating budget. It could be used for capital.
We just bought the
That's-
land with that, right?
Right.
Right, okay, so.
So
Capital stabilization.
you could fund capital stabilization, you can,
But
but
you
you
couldn't put it
cannot
in
let it go to
regular-
a department
You can put it
operating.
into an operating budget that's going to increase year to year, like to
But
fund salaries.
but from an accounting standpoint, do we enter next year's picture where that, once again, is going to be, if we don't proactively do anything with it, it's gonna pop up in May again as a free $100,000 or $200,000 for somebody? Or do we proactively do something to
We
make
need
it?
to be proactive on it. In my,
Is that something we need to do once or every year for 10 years?
Every year, because you save, what, every year for how many years, right?
Yes.
saved on the.
But shouldn't it take one action to kind of,
Technically, when you look at budget to budget, you
It's-
gotta see
it's the 10
savings
years
in
of-
1 year.
Okay.
Because
Oh, right, because you
once the
fund it and
next
then
year
it's in.
goes,
it's
you're at
in.
this level.
Right, you put it in and it's done, right.
Right.
because the only way to make it go away would be go back and change the initial vote on the borrowing, is that right? Is that why? Or, I'm just wondering why it would
Yeah,
have to
you
keep
could-
reoccurring.
You could do it in one swoop. If, for an example, you said, we're gonna bump OPEB up by 200,000.
Right.
And then the policy says after that, it increases 10% year after year. Well, now you've taken care of it. It's
Yeah.
gone.
And I don't even have an
It
opinion on what to
depends
do with it,
on-
I just hate the thought that we know it's out there, and it's, kind of like,
There are a few.
it's convenient when somebody decides they want to buy some land and had no idea where the money's gonna come from, and then, oh.
It is an outstanding issue that needs to be resolved with a couple of others for the fall special town meeting. One of them is the fact that we're still carrying a deficit. So we need to see where state aid comes
Carry a
in
deficit on.
on the budget.
The budget.
Yeah,
The
we've got,
budget's $96,000 out of it.
Right.
So we need to see where state aid comes in and then, potentially go back and rebalance the operating budget there. We need to deal with this $200,000 and figure out by policy, what are we gonna do? There's a
State
few
policy does deal with it, like you said.
It does right now, yes.
It deals with it the way we've been dealing with, debt service reductions. It gets set aside, it doesn't go into the operating budget, and it's been used for capital, it's been used for roadway, it's been used for OPEB. So,
Non-personnel.
yes.
All right, well, we'll have to revisit that
It's
subject.
a small hole to fill, 96,000.
It's, when state aid gets settled,
Yeah.
we'll close it.
Next topic I had is a bunch of general things, and we've been grousing about it year long. You people aren't the people that are at fault here, but you're the ones who are sitting in front of us, and that's our various administrative needs. And that tends to minutes, and we love Marilyn when she's able to help us, but we need to have, permanent, whether it's Marilyn and then somebody else to fill in when she's not here, or the whole posting thing, and I don't, it's not gonna be me forever in this chair, but whoever's here shouldn't have to do the amount of secretarial work that I end up doing, and I know you folks don't work for us, we work together, but there's, we've gotta find a way so that the finance committee's needs are met with the same way that Conservation Commission and Planning Board and School Committee and everyone else, they don't have to deal with that,
Right.
problem.
So do we need a line item?
You need a line item and you need a request to hire a position, you need a job description.
I'm hoping we can solve the problem without hiring, and I just think there's enough,
Hey, I'm
critical
stuck-
mass
stuck to
there.
me.
Right, well, that's the other thing, Chris picking up the burden on minutes, and I wasn't previewing that as like, let's go hire another person to work for the finance committee. It seems like an eminently solvable problem, so I'd like to get it in front of the selectmen. If someone's got a suggestion, your suggestion is what, part-time help?
My suggestion, we initially dealt with this by way of the senior work program.
Yeah.
And that worked really well for the time that Bob served. My mind, I wish the senior work program was a little bit more developed and that they could cull out the skill sets of the people that are.
They don't even try, Bonnie, because when I fill out the form,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. They don't pay any attention because, this is just an example. I'm in the superintendent's office. You know what we do up there? I knit, I read a book. There is nothing now that the phones
Marilyn,
have
want to work for us?
Yeah.
But, it
And
drives me
they're
crazy
going through
because
personnel change.
but I would much prefer to do something, and I complain constantly up there. Kelly will tell you, I'm always complaining that there's nothing to do. I need the senior tax work off, and if that's where it means, I'm gonna sit and twiddle my thumbs.
Well, then take
This
the
seems like we
registry
could fix
sign.
this.
Yeah, that's what I think. The person we want is being, sitting idle in an
Well,
office.
part of
Oh,
Part of it's just
gladly.
the timing though of having,
well,
Being able to be here at
there's
these
problems
meetings.
with that senior work-off program too, and that is the rules of the game, that it's not, we meet year-round. Senior work-off program is from this date to this date, and that's 6 months or less, right?
Really?
It
Yeah,
starts
yes.
July 1st up until your hours you've earned your hours.
Right, so
But
some
I
people
have-
learn them quick.
I keep staying on.
But there is a cutoff date, I mean, because.
Yeah, the money your forms have to be in by the end of March. So that
So,
means
so you're talking about, there's
3 months.
at
worth.
least a
Yeah,
quarter of
Right,
the year
March, July.
that's not being covered, you know?
Well,
And that's our busiest time of the year, as a matter of fact,
But, Al,
March
think about
to
it.
June.
If every volunteer that's on this tax work-off program quit at the end of March, the thrift shop would close. It is all run by senior volunteers on the tax work-off program.
Not all of them.
Well, 90% of
No,
them.
but that's only because they took advantage of it, otherwise they'd still work there.
Well, we do still work
Yeah.
there.
We've got an administrative problem, so I think we wanna solve, whether it's a combination of using the senior tax or whether it's, existing staff. I know nobody wants to offer up their existing staff, but somebody needs to help us so that, whoever takes
Then
that
I
chair.
think one easiest solution is to talk to Pam. Because
I mean, I will gladly stop if I have some work to do and do this. I would gladly do that.
But the problem though, Marilyn, sometimes you're just not available the nights we have meetings.
It's
That's-
Tuesday, the second Tuesday of every month, I'm not available through January.
I'll tell you
After January, I am.
It's some of the needs in between meetings too, and that's what,
Okay. All right,
the time I regret
so
losing.
you really
is,
do have some, so there could be some help there then. Good.
It's not a ton, but, I can't bill for it. All right.
they go through the signups soon, right?
Right.
July?
Right.
July,
We
they'll
did
be
June
going through
last time.
signups and
We sent it in
Yes.
June.
June.
I thought it was
So
the-
it's soon, so should have a conversation with Pam.
Well, I just previewing that when we sit down with the joint meeting, the selectmen and Keith, that'll be one of the topics I'll want to bring up. Our financial subcommittee, I'll get that as a separate item, which I'll talk to later on in our meeting. But the progress on that is something to bring up to the selectmen. They need to, boy, it's been an unlucky committee to be appointed. The two people get appointed immediately, getting lopped off in the next election. So maybe they don't want to, both Bob O'Neill and Greg Champion. So I don't know how quick we'll get volunteers to fill their spots. The budget process calendar, tweaking what we did this year, I don't know, I speak for myself, but I guess I speak for everybody. I think we like the results of what we did. And, but there's, within that, there's some things that I would, based on experience, like to change and things we just never got around to implementing. And, there's always a process of making it better, and I'm sure, you deal with it on a day-to-day basis, you probably get some recommendations too. But, that's obviously a topic for following up.
I thought it was a good process, from your standpoint.
Oh, I loved it. It was so much better.
Okay.
I thought it was a good process, once we nailed down a date,
Yeah.
and we moved like 3 times.
Right.
We can just identify a date in like September.
do it.
And just go with it,
The
everyone's ready.
major change, if you want to just get rid of it, the one major change that I know we already have a divergence on because it doesn't match up well with your schedule is, I'd like to even do that one-day meeting we had before Thanksgiving, before we get into the holidays. It was a bit of a strain having it November 1st.
I don't mind doing it. The last time we had the conversation, we were into September.
Right.
So it was kind of
So
like.
if we know we're starting early
I know
enough.
now, then I can plan for it and I can adjust my calendar.
And I think the other key change from my perspective in Betsy and I, when we're making the rounds together, is when we meet with departments, I don't know, maybe it's incumbent on us more, is I'd like to have those initial meetings more meaningful. And if maybe the thing is to have them before they develop their budgets, when they're in the idea stage, and the focus is more on, what programs they want to do and changes long term and before they get into a line item. But that's kind of the whole idea of prioritizing before we attach numbers to things. So, that may not necessarily impact you if we're out there in the field meeting with departments before their numbers are due to you. But we could start that part of the process earlier still, because we kind of scrambled to do that within a couple of weeks' time before December 1st, just
Right.
to get it done.
And that will work because the selectmen have their goals. They're going to be setting them over the next, month and a half.
Good.
So that, those will trickle down to the
Yep.
departments and then
Yep.
have your conversations after that.
I mean, can't argue with the end result. I mean, what did we get, one hold at town meeting, and it was on a procedural thing?
It's the quickest $35 million.
Yeah.
That went right by.
Who would have thought?
Most bizarre town meeting I've been through in 30 years I've been doing it.
Well, I guess the lesson is that people show up with the mindset they're ready to focus on something. And if it's not money, if it
Right.
happened to be zoning, then,
It was on me.
you know, if they were focused on money and you were coming in with zoning, you could probably fly through, whatever, I don't know. Okay. The audit, we talked about the revolving funds. Website, I know, Peter's not here, he'd really like to pick up where he left off and go, putting more stuff on the website. It's interesting, I looked around when I went to a bunch of the websites for different towns. A lot of towns do share some of the stuff that we've been talking about doing, and as a longer term goal, I'd hope we can get more and more data and transparency in real time just before the public, and let them go online and take a look at stuff.
That's my next leap with this budget document
Yeah.
process. This year, I want to do the second half of it. And if it works the right way, then it will be one document that's fluid, that, you can kind of scroll through and see the details, the summary, the expectations. It'll be meaningful.
That's on the budget part, but in terms of just spending, ongoing actuals, I mean, how much, is there any reason more of that can't just be? if you-
Uploaded?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it can be.
okay. I'm not sure what's gained by that, other than just, transparency. The public wants to see how the money's being spent, when it's being spent.
Yeah.
Have at it, there it is.
I generate reports all the time, so.
That's the only advantage I see
Yeah,
immediately is,
it's just public information.
Yeah.
The open checkbook, I think, is what all the politicians refer to it as when they talk about it.
Very easy to upload.
Collective bargaining, this is a selectman issue. It came up, and I'm not even sure the whole board's aware of it, because we haven't really met other than the town meeting the past couple of weeks. That an issue relative to collective bargaining came up with the selectmen, which we went through this last fall. When something comes up that has financial impact, they're supposed to include us. And I guess they what, extended benefits, or are they talking about extending benefits for veterans with the financial impact? And do you know anything about that?
The military leave.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
Yeah, there's been discussion and approval, I believe it was approved. I
The-
can't remember what the year was.
Yeah, they approved it right before the
Right.
town meeting.
Okay.
In my understanding is they took a finite benefit and made it open-ended?
Correct.
pretty much so, yeah.
Correct.
Well, why would we care?
Right. And it's in the context of collecting bargaining, right?
Correct. Yes.
Everything else we've done on personnel matters in the past year,
It's
to the
been
great
limit.
credit of everybody who did it, is to put limits where they used to be open-ended. And my understanding as well, I'm not, 2 days after, a day after Memorial Day, was, what was voted apparently far exceeds what the state norm.
Correct.
Any idea what the rationale for it was? And I know I'm asking the wrong people, but
Well, the rationale for that is one thing, but if I'm not incorrect, I think there's a movement afoot to then, not in the arena of collective bargaining, something for something, but to then just automatically move that benefit to all the existing contracts for no gain to the town, but if you got it in one, to just put it in all the
And
others.
if you're, I've received nothing in writing in this. This was heard anecdotally. I'm not getting confirmation on this. So you haven't missed anything. We haven't been informed of anything. But it's relative to collective bargaining. And I think, Fred, we designated you as our collective. I'm sure you check your email daily. You didn't get anything on it. I didn't get anything on it. But it's a topic the selectmen have discussed it. So if we put it on an agenda with them, we can,
Yes.
All right.
Sounds like it's gonna be a fun meeting.
Well, it's, somebody obviously thought this was a good way to additionally honor our veterans, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
How it came about, I'm not quite sure. Did the selectmen propose doing this at a selectmen's meeting? Did it come up in the context of,
I believe it came from a department head request.
that was involved in collective bargaining for a particular, well, we only have one unit that has not signed the contract, right?
It doesn't have anything to do with
I'm gonna put, rather than putting Bonnie on the spot, I'm gonna put these items in, in form of just a memo detail, so we can put it on there and say, hey,
Yeah.
if you got information on that, could you please let us know as per our agreement last fall, and,
Yeah, well, that's true. From a standpoint as a member of this committee, I'm interested.
Yeah.
As a citizen, I'm interested since we go to such great lengths to make sure that we don't have open-ended stuff.
Right.
And that we don't give items in contracts for, there's no quid pro quo. Makes no sense to me, so I become the guy with the speakers. In my experience, give you my resume, then I'll tell you what you've done wrong.
Okay, and I could probably go on other items, but I'll just finish up on one other thing. This is more for you, Bonnie, than for the selectmen. Do you generate a monthly report internally on the finances, expenditures, budget
Yes.
versus expense?
Yep.
I
I put it in the mailbox.
Physically?
Yep.
Okay.
Want me to email them?
That would be easier,
Okay.
yes.
Actually, my assistant puts them in the mailbox.
Okay. I thought that was the case.
Yep.
That'll fill up the
Alan
inbox.
delivered me my mail or two, I don't go there,
I will email them.
email. Okay, great. To everybody. Any other topics folks can think of that we should be discussing with the selectmen or administrators? Brian?
We danced around a little bit about this year about the shared responsibility for things like town fields and so on.
Oh, yeah.
We touched on that. I don't know if we've ever really closed the loop. This year, we're not getting any new fields, but it seems like next year, pretty likely we probably will. I mean, we're
Good
running.
time to address that issue is when you don't have a topic on the table, I would think.
Right. I mean, I think we probably do need an argument could be made that we need a field, and figuring out now who pays for it, who pays the maintenance, how it's split.
Whose budget does it go into with the justification?
Yeah, we used to have those discussions, or almost, everybody's not mine, it's yours, it's
It
yours.
is-
That seems to have gone by the board somewhat, that we've kind of worked that out, is that the case?
There's an agreement.
There's an agreement, yep. And,
Between which, because there's two, there's Park and Rec and,
Schools and-
well, there's schools and
Park and
Park and
Rec
Rec, and then the highway, so it's a
Select.
tripartite.
Yes.
Okay. But there is something in writing that everyone agrees to?
Yes.
Because I think it came up when we were, with,
Well, from a budgeting standpoint, where the money was, it was a piece of it was here, a piece of it was there, so it wasn't clear exactly what was being spent. But the departments were all okay with
Right.
who was doing what. But I think it was
There is
the
a-
budget, we couldn't see exactly what was going on.
It seemed like we got right up close, but we could use that going the mast inch.
yeah, if we're gonna,
I can forward you the agreement, just so you can.
Every time we have a policy, we do better.
okay, and then say we have an agreement, then is there, maybe we're working toward having one master place document, a policy or whatever else, where all these things are memorialized, maybe nothing needs to be changed in that agreement other than it's just, incorporated into the financial policies and, in the budget
If somebody
document.
complains, I'd like to be able to say, well, but I've read your agreement.
Check right here, you can go right to the
It
website,
says
it's right
that
there, yeah.
you do this and you do that, and he does the other thing, so.
Okay, that's a good catch.
Yeah, I don't know
There's
that
an
it's
agreement, they still
unanimous
complain, but
Yeah.
there's.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we get that grousy when we go around.
I didn't think that would stop the complaining,
Yeah.
but,
It doesn't.
But you can never put your thumb on, who's making out and who's not making out, and I don't really care about that if it's been agreed to by everybody.
Yes, it's been agreed to, and there is some dissension still on getting the better end of the agreement.
Okay.
But if you fix that, then they're gonna complain about something else. So to some extent, you gotta leave something there, right?
I'm sure it's
It's better
easily
to have them
fixed.
complain about something that You can't do anything about it. Right?
It's easily fixed with money, I'm sure.
As always.
Is the agreement.
Why don't I leave it this way? We're not gonna be meeting with the selectmen again until the 24th. In all likelihood, we will meet again then, although I'll leave that to the board to discuss shortly. If anything else comes up that members thinking that, oh yeah, we should be discussing that with the selectmen and the finance administration team, just send it by email to the committee or bring it up at the next meeting. Otherwise, any other outstanding issues, process, thoughts, comments on the year we just had? It's never too late or too early to bring things up.
Well, it was a good year.
Good year. Okay, all right.
Town meeting was a breeze for us, usual problems for you, but.
I would ask if you can think about a meeting in July.
Oh, yeah.
Just the beginning, before the 15th, or right around the 15th.
Before the 15th, all right. And that's good to know because we'll be getting into
Because
that
that's that
later on.
last minute
That's the,
things we gotta do.
last minute reserve fund transfers, the last time we have the procedure that allows the finance committee and the board of selectmen to do transfers at year end.
You can do that after July 1st?
You can do that effective
Before the
through June
books are
30th.
closed.
Oh, okay.
Unless the books are
You
closed.
can't do it after the 15th.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Does it matter as long as it's after July 1st? You'll know by then what's
Yeah, I
out
mean,
there.
the closer to the 15th, I get a better accurate.
Okay.
Nobody wants to meet before it.
Yep.
So,
All right. Next item, the financial policies update. I'll give that briefly. We have met twice now. You might have, if you came in early, saw we were meeting. Bonnie and Steve jointly have put together a draft which incorporated not only the language we were anticipating for the capital stabilization, but a number of other policy things that have come up in time that have not been, either their existing practice that we are already doing that weren't incorporated into the financial policies, whether it's OPEB and, I don't know, snow and ice, some of those other things. And then there's, a couple of new initiatives which are consistent with things we've heard, which we were just talking about this afternoon. I think a redraft will probably be kicking around in a few weeks' time or something, is that fair to say? Yeah. And that's just within the realm of our existing policies, adding in the capital stabilization and a couple of other tweaks we haven't got into yet, some of the other possible topics. But we're making progress, we had a good discussion. We had a little turnover on the committee that created a change, so we need at least a new selectman representative in addition to Jim Carr. And if the schools want to give us a second, Mike Fontenelle has been participating, which has been good. But we're moving along. We'll probably have a draft to show the finance committee and selectmen by the time we meet in June, I would guess. Yeah. Of at least that chunk of it anyways. Anything you guys want to add on that?
No, I'm doing accounting mode in year end.
Okay,
March,
fine.
so.
Yeah, that's fine. Finance director report, anything different you want to, that hasn't already come up?
No, I will finalize the snow and ice deficit in the next week. I'm just waiting for this warrant to go through to get any straggling bills, and I'll email that report out to you, just so you can see where it sits. We're well within, under the deficit that we had planned.
Okay. All right, summer schedule. Two questions. One, the general one, how often do you want to meet? And two, specific to every member, do you have time periods when you know you're going to be away? So,
I say it's June 24th meetings, that's my son's birthday, I ain't gonna be here.
that's the Board of Selectmen one?
Yeah. Carry on.
Okay. Well, that was just Keith's suggestion, so I mean, we may not win, we'll see. Did the selectmen meet again early in that in June? It's just a full
They
agenda?
meet June 10th, but their agenda is like,
Okay. All right. I would like to meet, one more time before we meet with the selectmen. And, I won't schedule a meeting unless we have things to do, but does anyone want to suggest a date? Who's got a calendar handy? Yeah, the Tuesday in June, maybe the 11th is what, 2 weeks from tonight?
Okay.
Do you want to aim for that for the next meeting?
No, Paul,
This-
that's
this
the
room
second
is
Tuesday,
taken
so
on the
I'm-
11th.
What's that?
Yes, this room is not available on the 11th.
Okay.
What are we likely to?
I know the 18th, I'm going to be busy.
Yes.
You can't do the 11th anyway?
Because it's the second Tuesday of the month.
And,
I'm the clerk of the vestry at church.
Oh.
And that's when they meet, once a
Okay.
month. But I'm off as of January, so.
all right.
So Paul, just curious, I mean, what are we likely to be, is that just a placeholder meeting in case?
Yeah, right now, I mean, I don't have any, I'd go a week later or two, I just hate to kind of go into sleeper mode. But I know the 18th, I'm not gonna be around. I'm more than happy to schedule a meeting if folks want to go ahead and meet. Well,
I can't do the 11th, but
we
whatever.
can't do the 11th, all right. Why don't we just take the second half of my question, then and go around the room and I'll try to establish what people are, you have a vacation time, you know you're gonna be away for the summer other than your son's birthday and Rowan's birthday?
No, I'm mostly.
Nothing specific. How about you, Chris?
I'm gonna have school, but I'm not sure what the dates are gonna be.
Okay, that night, so you could
Yeah.
have Tuesday nights possible?
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday deal.
Oh. How long is that gonna go?
Just 6 weeks, I got the second half of the summer.
How what you did last year, right? When'd you do that? You did that?
No, that was probably in the fall or the spring, that was for
Okay.
8 weeks.
Right.
Only 6 weeks in the summer compared to 8 in
Yeah. All right. How about you, Betsy? Just
I'm going the week after the 4th.
week after the 4th.
Yeah.
That's probably when I'll be going too.
Which is when Bonnie wanted to have her meeting.
Right.
I just need a majority of you to sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
But depending upon what we want to do, you know, we will either do a meeting for, we get you a majority so you can have that done, or if we want to do something substantive, we'll get everybody together. Alan, what are your schedule?
I'll be here through July, but August I'm gonna be away, and the first couple of weeks in October.
Okay. Fred, do you know what your schedule is?
The only thing that I've got planned at this point is the last week of July, first week of August.
You're gonna be away last week, July, first week of
We
August?
just skip August anyway.
Well, we're bound to meet at least once. Oh, all right, given that information, why don't I,
Clam bake.
huh?
We'll have a clam bake.
Why don't I,
At Paul's house.
Yeah.
put that together with the master calendar, compare with Bonnie, and we'll send out a prospective calendar. And I guess, we don't have a hard date for our next meeting. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Can everyone handle that?
Doesn't look like it's gonna happen in June, right?
Oh, no, we'll have a meeting, it's just gonna figure the right date
It's
out.
not gonna work.
Yeah.
Paul, you might want to write down, I'm leaving
Oh.
for the Orient on June 21st, and I won't be back till July 20th.
June 21st, till when, July 20th?
Yep.
Wow.
Where's the Orient?
Tokyo, Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Bangkok,
Beautiful.
and some other cities I can't pronounce.
Wow. Tour.
Tough time of year to do that trip.
Yeah.
I know,
Tough
didn't
time.
realize, but, you know, I was trying to work on band
Yeah, you've got all
concerts
those
and
places,
ballet
haven't you?
recitals and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
All right, minutes, why don't we, I'll circulate a prospective schedule, a summer schedule, then and we'll see where we go with that.
Just along with that, segue into minutes,
Yes.
with the upcoming joint board, 24th, it'd be nice to have the minutes of this meeting at least a week before that. so
Thank
that
you.
The item, we discussed a whole list of items that we want to bring up with them.
Yeah,
like
if only to fine tune that,
Yeah.
we'll meet between now and when we meet with the selectmen. I just can't figure out what day that's gonna be.
Yeah, but I would like to get this minutes the week before the 24th.
Now, would
If
anybody
it-
go into
If
Apple?
it ends up
Right.
we can't meet, I'd still like to know, see that list of all the things we talked
Right.
about.
I will circulate that, one way, I'll from my notes, or if you've got it in the minutes from what we.
I think I have all of them, but if you circulate yours and even send, I'll make sure I have it.
Okay, great. Well, let me throw this idea out here too, for the purposes of the June meeting. Is anybody heart's gonna be broken if we pick a date that's other than a Tuesday?
No.
The Wednesday nights are out for me, but
Okay.
don't let that hold you.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. All right, we'll make something work and we'll float it around. All right, minutes. Why don't we start with Marilyn put some before us, right? These are the,
Those are mine.
oh, those are yours?
Chris?
Oh,
No,
all
I
right.
just made one copy of April 16th.
What is
Because
that?
March 5th has been accepted and March 19th was accepted, and the only other ones I did were April 16th.
Okay.
Right, so.
Why don't we start with Chris's, because he's already
Yeah.
distributed, we'll get to yours in a moment, thank you.
Chris, do you have a copy of them? Because I'm going,
You can have mine.
I,
No,
okay, the only reason is I'm going to get these to Jen.
Right.
Yeah,
And we'll get it up on
and-
the website.
And the 8th, which for some reason they haven't posted January 8th, which I have over here. We need to get January 8th posted.
Okay.
You
Do you have those digitally, if you send them to them by email?
Yes, I do. I do.
Send them to me email?
Yeah, I can email it to you.
Okay.
Okay, terrific. The April 9th minutes, everyone wants to take, if you take a moment to review them, these are graciously presented by Chris, and these reflect this was our pre-town meeting, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
On Article 16th, I'm not really sure it was Fred who seconded it.
Easy being for us.
Did I mess up?
No. I'm just goofing on your detail, man. That's some serious detail.
Nice, very nice.
That's good, looks official and everything.
Yeah, it does.
Move to accept.
All right, I have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded then to approve the minutes of the April 9th meeting as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. And you guys will make sure it gets posted? You're gonna give it to
Yeah.
Marilyn and you'll
Yeah.
get,
I'll get.
now you put it, now what is it you do, Marilyn? You put it up on the website, will you also get to the clerk or one?
I make sure that Jen gets it, and then she sends them up, and she just, whatever she does, they automatically go up on the website.
All right, you know, we're
We only have
discovering.
1 minute up there. We only have January 15th. That's it.
And the website is not the official place they need to go. It's good, that they need to go there too.
Well, where they are is when you
Yes.
go into the town government, and you go down under they're in that spot.
Oh.
That's good, and they need to go there, but that's not the same as they going to the clerk. Because the clerk is saying, people are posting things on the website, but they're not coming to me.
Oh, well, I can get Diane.
That's,
Diane
anything you
copy
send to
of-
Jen, please copy
Okay.
Diane on it. All right. That seemed like a reasonably simple issue, but that was becoming an issue, believe it or not.
Oh,
Not just us, I think that was happening with a lot of boards.
Oh,
People were
because-
posting things on the website that were covered, but it's
Yeah.
not getting to the clerk's office, and that's where they need to be posted.
Okay.
All right, and we have also minutes from May 1st, which was the annual town meeting, right, Chris?
Well, no, that was our presentation.
Oh, right, that was our.
Public presentation.
Yeah,
You also had on the agenda Article 30, which was the septic program.
yes.
But I don't recall Peter Knapp coming in that day, the day we did our
We
presentation.
didn't, we ended
Yeah,
up,
so
we
didn't-
ended up doing it at the town meeting.
Okay, all right.
Yep, good.
I just only knew it was on the
Yeah,
agenda.
you're right. Well, not much to debate here.
No. Move to we accept the minutes of May 1st.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded then, that we accept the minutes of the May 1st Finance Committee meeting minutes as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, good. Same process on that, folks, please. Right. And Marilyn, you had one other set for us to consider, right?
I have, yeah, which is April 16th.
Okay,
They
yeah,
had gone out to everyone, but I only have the one copy,
okay.
but they did go out.
Maybe we can just pass it around, if we did get it, maybe people want to refresh their eyes on it. And on the ones that we already voted that didn't go up, you'll,
I'll make sure that they go up, which is March
I was
5th and March 19th.
great, they were already voted,
Yep.
but they need to just go up on the
They just
website
need
and to the
go
clerk.
up And to Diane.
Terrific. All right.
Yeah, okay. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I remember that. You gonna be giving those things to Jen physically? No, you're gonna be sitting when
I usually send one.
is this,
I'm
you
at
going by
the,
town hall at all?
I am tomorrow.
You are? Okay. This needs to go to,
Probably.
I think Bonnie forgot to
Bonnie.
take it with her. It's the
Yeah.
reserve fund transfer, thank you.
Yeah, that everybody gets signed.
Right.
Pull it out here like a
Renege.
8,000.
shot of a rocket.
Reconsideration.
Change it to lifeguards.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what
It'll only
did
be
they-
half the price,
What did
not
they do
even.
with the beach out, the beach, when did they close, what are the hours now?
I don't know, we,
Closing at
5 o'clock.
Instead of
Hasn't even
what,
opened
6?
yet.
Was it used to be 6?
It used to be
5?
7. And,
Was
you
it
know,
7?
people, it was last year, but I mean, people, some people will like the fact that lifeguards leave at 5, because then they can take their flotation devices out in the water. But then they're not renting boats and things like that too, I think.
And the
And
swim
the swimming
lessons.
lessons, that's a
Yeah.
bigger deal.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
right, because for,
2
for,
hours.
for people, for parents who work, you know, it's pretty tough to race home and make it there.
Absent anyways.
Yeah,
The
that's
beach isn't
way too
closed at
broke.
5 though.
I know, but for a swim lesson.
But do they do swim lessons in the
They
empty?
never did swimming
never do them at
lessons.
night. They're
They
always
were
in the
always
morning.
done only in the morning.
They're always in the morning.
Swimming lessons were in the morning, because I used
And
to
then on
have.
weekends, probably in the morning, right?
April
They,
9th
no,
down
they
here,
didn't have
just-
one, they were
No,
Monday,
Just
Friday in the
weekdays
morning.
on the.
I have
In the morning,
April
because I used to take the
16th.
kids
April
down.
16th.
Because my
I'm
daughter
ready to
worked.
make a motion.
All right. Alan's ready to make a motion.
Right. Move that we accept the meeting minutes of April 16th, 2013 as read by everybody at the table.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded then to accept the minutes of April 16th Finance Committee meetings as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Good, we're in getting in good shape here. Thank you. That's all I have. Anything else, folks? I'll entertain another motion.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, meeting's adjourned. Good.
Fire, baby. Flip the switch.
Well, we're already gone.